Good afternoon, everybody. Um, it is I, Nathan Armento, the host of the Hellenistorian channel. Um, this video should have been published 2 weeks ago, but I ran into some difficulties. I got randomly sick out of nowhere. I'm not sure what it was. But, a couple symptoms were just really the sore throat, runny nose, congestion, coughing. It very well might have been COVID-19, um, but that is for another topic. Um, Before we are to move on, a couple things. This revolves around our channel schedule. We will maintain the two videos every week, but you know how after that I have breaks. So I decided to use one of those break weeks to publish some a video just to keep myself in the algorithm really, and also just to do other things that I wouldn't really do. And these videos will not be as have much effort put into them, to be honest. They're really gonna be how-to guides and a couple other things. That's what I have in mind right now, but things could change. But also the Athenian Constitution. So this technically will be part two of what we are covering, and we also have another part, two more parts of until we can cover this. After that, I'm not sure what I will cover. I'm considering the Boeotian or the Spartan Constitution. They're not really long, so it's really just worth the effort just to get it out there, and it's also just good to get it out there because since we're on the topic of constitutions here. But anyways, in this video, we really will be discussing the framework for classical Athens. So, one of the major events that led up to the creation of classical Athens is the discovery of these mines called the Marinea. So, these were found in the archonship of Nicodemus, and this took place around the second Persian invasion of Greece led by King Xerxes I of Persia. So, roughly around 480 BCE. And this led to the discovery of really a surplus of 100 talents, which is really do not quote me on this, but it's around a couple billions of dollars, technically speaking. So, fellow Athenians who were there, who discovered this, recommended that the talent should be distributed among the Athenians. But another Athenian disagreed. His name was Themistocles. Themistocles is one of the pioneers of classical Athens. He is basically the one who made the Athenians the masters of the sea, and they would be the masters of the sea until the Peloponnesian War, and eventually Persia would take over from there. But anyways, Themistocles proposed that one talent should be lent to the wealthiest Athenians, and he also wanted to involve the citizens of Athens on what the talent should be spent on. The state would finance what they decided, and they would also recover the talents from those who borrowed. Um, the citizens liked this proposal, and Themistocles ordered to build 100 triremes, which would be really useful against their enemy, King Xerxes, because those would be probably one of the more crucial things done to prevent the fall of Western civilization. So this is the fleet that would be used to fight the Persians in the legendary Battle of Salamis. So moving on, this is where we really get to the foundation of Athens Empire here. It's not really relevant to their constitution, but it's relevant to their history in general. So, as you know, the city grew and developed its democratic principles as the time passed on. After the Persian Wars, the Areopagites regained strength and ran the city. This was not because they were voted into the position, but because they had a hand in the Battle of Salamis. So naturally, they had the credibility and the prestige to take that take that duty on. Like every era has its notable figures, in this time period it happened to be Aristides the Just and Themistocles, who we previously mentioned. Themistocles was reputed for his military achievement. He was the man responsible for making Athens the naval power it became. Aristides is he's probably he's actually really significant importance. But anyways, he was reputed for his cleverness as a politician and for his sense of justice. The Athenians enjoyed Aristides as a political advisor, and Themistocles became a general. These two men were responsible for the buildings of the Long Walls. The Long Walls were, in, in short, they were basically, as they can be described, they made Athens impenetrable, and this would be really useful in the time of the Peloponnesian War, but it would also lead to eventually Lysander, one of the probably one of the more notable Spartans in history, to eventually siege them and basically starve them until they pretty much gave up and pretty much accepted the terms by the Spartans. But anyways, Themistocles and Aristides were rivals like Chiron and Pericles, which would come in the next generation. Aristides was responsible for Ionia deflecting from the Spartan alliance when he took advantage of the mistakes of one of the Spartan kings, Pausanias. Um, Aristides tried to get Ionians and Athens together when he made the following oath to have the same enemies and friends. This really started their empire to grow from there. And Athens' reputation soon grew, and her financial grew to an enormous amount. Aristides was the first to suggest for Athens to seize the hegemony and have the people live in the city instead of the countryside. And this would have really helped in times of Peloponnesian War, of course. And of course, since they were thriving, their employment was really great, and there were a lot of job opportunities, like for expeditions, having a hand in government, and garrison duty, and in this way, this would help them become a hegemon. The Athenians agreed to Aristides' suggestion of being a hegemon, and they took control. They began to treat their allies like subjects. Except for the people of Chios, Lesbos, and Samos, these people were used to guard their growing empire, but they were still pawns in their empire. So don't get it wrong. They did allow them to keep their constitutions, but they were still really pawns. So the Delian League, as a result, would really just become the Athenian Empire. The Athenians bullied those who wanted to detach themselves from the empire, and this was forcing their return. This is basically Athenian imperialism, and as a result, they had a lot of money coming in. The tribute they took from their allies, the taxation, and the economy just brought them to overall great heights. And that's pretty much really it for the foundation of the empire. And now we will mention the forgotten pioneer of classical Athens, Ephialtes. For a while, the constitution remained the same under the Areopagus. It was slowly deteriorating as it had been 17 years since the Persian invasion. As a result, the power of the masses began to grow. In this time period, another champion of the people emerged. He was Ephialtes, the son of Sophonides. He was he had earned himself a fine reputation of incorruptibility. Man, I cannot speak today. But anyways, Ephialtes would attack the Areopagus and remove many of the members of for administrative conduct, misconduct. Additionally, he took all of its powers. He even took their power of guardianship of the Constitution. Later on, he gave this power to the Bullae, Ecclesia, and the Dicasteria. We already went over what the Bullae, Ecclesia, and Dicasteria were in the last video, so I will not mention it. I will not mention it in this video. But of course, he did not act alone because he had Themistocles to help him with the reforms. Themistocles had his personal reasons to help him, since he was a member of the Areopagus and he was facing a charge of treason with Persia. And this is mentioned in Herodotus and, and as well as in Plutarch. They go in a lot more depth into it if anybody is interested. But anyways, a couple of individuals were planning to overthrow the constitution. In addition, they plan to have Ephialtes arrested, and most likely because he had the support of the masses, and they would side with him, which is really a major threat. Themistocles would then lead a group of the individuals that were conspirators to the Areopagus. Ephialtes was present in this, and he had to take refuge in an altar. He had to ditch his old garments and dress in a supplying garment so he would not be recognized. Eventually, Ephialtes and Themistocles took this information to the Bulla and Ecclesia. They succeeded in stripping their power away. Sometimes after this, Epiotes was assassinated. But with that being said, the next section, a need for a leader. Chiron, the son of Miltiades, ascends. So for a long time, the Athenian public life was just a mess. Like all their politicians or potential politicians have just died out because it's constant warring and just overall just betrayal. But anyways, in this time period, Chiron, the son of Miltiades, was young and had just entered into public life. Public life just means into political life, by the way. Many politicians had perished in the prior wars, as I said, and this led to many improper decisions. The first, which was having an inexperienced stratego in charge of the armies. They could not conduct their military matters properly, and they only were in this position because due to the prestige and accomplishments of their ancestors, which is not really a good thing, because it led to people suffer. It led to people in these armies being the casualties, and these casualties were very, very, very huge because they did not have proper generals. In addition, the Athenians had failed to give importance to the laws. They had also not been making a change against the selection of the nine archons. They would allow the citizens of the Guetide class to partake in the preliminary selection for archon, and prior to that, only citizens of the Hippias and Pentecostomendoe class were permitted. This was probably the most notable change at this time, by the way. And in addition to this, the 30 justices were re-established. They were the magistrates of the themes, well, another notable thing. And now we move on to our next session. The man who made Athens masters of Greece, Pericles the Olympian. So in then the next era that followed, Pericles the Olympian rose to power. The success of Athens had brought a couple of problems, and his solution to this was to not permit citizenship to those whose parents were born citizens. This really particularly because Athenians were marrying women overseas, and this led to the Athenian women being left unmarried. And the rise of Pericles and his ascension to fame has to do with how he brought Cimon to the Euthuna as a young man. He was a strategos, and it was him who really took the task of prosecuting him. When Pericles came to power, he made the state a lot more democratic. Notable things he did: he deprived the Areopagus of more power, turned the state towards more naval power, and had the people more involved in the government. When he was a lot younger, he introduced the concept of paying people for jury duty at the court. This wasn't done out of generosity; it was a power move against his political rival Cimon. Pericles was not as wealthy as Cimon. How could he be? Cimon maintained many people from his demon did not have an estate comparable to him. And so Cimon really displayed his wealth by really just removing his fences and allowing people to just pick fruit off his trees. And he also just really supported everyone from his deme. And however, a notable flaw of his decision of giving jury duty pay was really that the quality of the courts just decreased, and people were now doing this for their own benefit, and this allowed corruption to take place. Apologies for cutting out there. I thought I heard my door getting knocked. I was just hearing things. It turned out, but this is the last section. The next generation of leaders, Nicias, Thucydides, and Theramenes. The next generation of leaders wasn't really compared to their predecessors, in my opinion. However, it is difficult not to acknowledge a couple of figures. The next to rise would be Nicias, Thucydides, and Theramenes. You could mention Alcibiades, but I don't really. I just I'm not a big fan of it. But anyways, Nicias and Thucydides were said to be the great politicians, and they looked after the city like they were fathers to it, which is really particularly true. Theramenes, on the other hand, was a controversial figure, but he was a person that did not go against the law or support regimes that went against their laws. And that really closes out this video here, really short. This really was just a add-on here. Um, this part and the next part will really just be a history part for the Athenian Constitution. We're not really going to be discussing the Constitution until the final part, and I'm thinking of adding a fifth part, maybe, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. But this really covers today's video, and like always, I hope you enjoy and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.